Thanks, Chair. The Swedish eco-activist Greta Thunberg famously described COP26 as a load of blah, blah, blah. She went a bit further on COP27, describing it as a sham that provides a platform for greenwashing, lying and cheating. There is also plenty of blah at COP27, and none better than our own Taoiseach. If you believed the Taoiseach, you would think that Ireland is leading the world in addressing climate change. However, the reality is very different. While Ireland may have very ambitious emission reduction targets, we have got nowhere near meeting them. We have the third highest per capita emissions in the EU. But the official statistics don't give the full picture. As has been said by my colleague, an ERSI report says our greenhouse gas emissions are up to 70% higher than calculated. This is when you take into account what we actually consume as opposed to producing. We import very high levels of emissions from countries producing chemicals, rubber, plastic, etc. When it comes to carbon impact of the high-tech products, we import 55 times as much as we produce. But it is emissions embedded in imports that make up but as emissions embedded in imports for households that make up the imported emissions. This is because under existing international rules to combat climate change, a country's emissions are based on what it produces. This follows richer countries to, in effect, export their emissions to poorer countries in the global south. This penalises those countries who are involved in the more carbon-heavy stage of global supply chain. It is an extreme example of greenwashing and the hypocrisy of events like COP. COP27, sponsored by Coca-Cola, which says a lot, was supposed to be the African COP. However, the Africans and those suffering the worst of climate breakdown to date were not the key players in this event. As usual, the biggest group were the lobbyists for the fossil fuel industry. According to one NGO, there are at least 636 lobbyists for the fossil fuel industry, a figure greater than the combined delegates from the 10 most climate-impacted countries. The United Arab Emirates had the biggest party delegation with over 1,000. The UAE has a population of just 9 million, but it is a major oil and gas exporter. Oil and gas lobbyists were included in 29 national delegations. These figures give a very clear indication as to who has the real say in these gatherings. No surprise then that several commitments made at COP26 in Glasgow, rather than being reinforced, were actually dropped from the final text, such as the target for global emissions to peak by 2025. There was no mention of fossil fuels and hardly any to the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. Next year's COP will be held in Dublin, enough said. Climate breakdown is not something that just affects the future. It is happening now with calamitous effects on those countries and communities who are at least responsible for it. We have a catastrophic situation now with a global warming of 1.2 degrees, and we're heading for double that within decades. Large parts of the planet will become uninhabitable, and this is inevitable unless we bring to an end the social and economic system based on the needs of major multinationals, the fossil fuel investors, and the 1%, and replace it with a democratic planned economy based on the needs of people and their environment. We need climate transformation. And just say I do congratulate the Civil Service for getting the loss and damage package, but as Claire O'Connor from the Friends of the Earth says, the gain in loss and damage is undermined by the failure of COP27 to phase out fossil fuels.
Deputy Minister to respond.